We are diving into the PLAB pathway, the pros and cons of choosing it and why you would choose it, or more importantly, why I chose this as an Indian medical graduate. This is one of the most common questions I get from medical students, graduates, and even from postgraduate training. So what exactly is the PLAB pathway? PLAB stands for Professional Linguistic Assessment Board. It is a series of exams you need to pass to practice medicine in the UK if you have graduated from a medical school that's not in UK, not from a European Union country, or from Switzerland. Now the question is, why choose the PLAB pathway at all? Choosing the PLAB pathway has several appealing aspects, especially for an Indian medical graduate. And considering the recent NEET, UG and PG fiasco, I think it has given just more reasons for one to consider moving abroad after their medical education. But I would like to say is that, like any pathway, it has its own cons and pros. And I would advise everyone to look at their personal condition, their personal goals, and then decide for themselves as which pathway would be the best suited for them. Breaking down to the main reasons why I chose this pathway would be global recognition, work-life balance, structured training program, and more cultural and professional growth. The UK has a recognized healthcare system, and working in the NHS opened doors to a lot of international medical opportunities. After my MBBS in India, one thing I realized is that we are equivalent to an FMGE in any other country other than India. And to move or even think about migrating is a huge hassle in itself with our medical degree. And that's one reason why I had decided that if I were to pursue the medical pathway, enter training, I wanted to complete my training from a system or pathway that is internationally recognized. And UK was one country that offers the same. The other countries that offer this would be the USMLE, the Canadian medical pathway, the Australian or AMC pathway, or the New Zealand pathway. All these pathways considered, the UK or the PLAB pathway is far more shorter, far more affordable, and more structured in its entry-level path. Coming to the structured training program, the training program in UK is structured in a manner that you have your levels described by your competencies, and you have a documentation of each level, skill, or experience that you attain. And one of the main reasons why most international countries do not accept our degree, even though we know as Indian medical graduates how much experience and clinical skill that we gain through an Indian residency program, is the fact that our training program in our home country is not as structured with proper documentation or proofs. Whereas on the other hand, the UK system has system of portfolio maintenance, appraisals and revalidation, which makes sure that your competencies are updated and has been supervised, which gives it a more robust or more credibility, which is absent in the Indian medical system. Having such a standardized system makes it easier for other countries to evaluate or compare your skills and experience gained so far and equalize with their expected competencies or skill that they are looking for, which makes integrating into a new system or applying for medical pathways or medical positions outside of UK or any other country in the world more easier for you once you have done your training from the UK pathway. Coming to the work-life balance, one of the most important reasons that almost had me quit medicine was the life of the postgraduate residents I saw during my internship. And what I felt was that there was almost zero work-life balance, no space for a doctor's health, their food or sleep. Even during my GRship at AIMS, I noticed that even senior residents, so even at that point of your training or level, it was hard to find space or time for yourself. And this almost made me quit medicine and explore careers outside of medicine. But what I realized was, it was not that I was not interested in clinical medicine, but rather I wanted to practice medicine in a system that made it possible to have a life outside of medicine. And the PLAB pathway or the UK or the NHS system was one that appealed to me as the most closest to making it possible for me to achieve this. Coming to the cultural and professional growth scope that NHS offers, I grew up as an NRI and I've always been exposed to a multicultural background. I kind of felt a little off place being confined to one particular cultural system or cultural background, and I felt like I always had a yearning to be in a multicultural dynamic environment, and that is one of the reasons that even in the UK I've really fell in love with London. Now, coming to the brief pros of the PLAB pathway, one would be that it is a clear and structured pathway, or the process is more defined. So as I mentioned earlier, in my quest to do my specialty training from a globally recognized pathway, the options I had was the USMLE, PLAB, AMC, the Canadian pathway, or the New Zealand medical pathway. In comparison to all these 5 pathways, if you consider the initial process of clearing the exam, getting the country's medical registration, and getting entry into the system, PLAB offers a much easier way than the other 4. The second point would be that this is a more affordable pathway. I know one of the reasons I did not consider the USMLE was mainly because of the financial cost involved, because I did not have a personal backing to finance my journey, considering the exam cost, that move to US and waiting for match, residency, and also doing observerships there. And the USMLE system is not just hard in terms of the exam, but what I found the most hardest in terms of USMLE was the fact that you need a lot of references and recommendations, and that happens mostly when you do have good connections in the US, especially in the healthcare system. I had none of these, and that was one of the reasons that motivated me to choose UK over the US. Coming to the third point, which might sound a little controversial, is that the PLAB pathway is comparatively more shorter. What I mean by shorter is not in terms of the entire period of training, but in terms of how short it is to get into the system and start your journey in that particular medical system. As I mentioned again, the USMLE would be the shortest if you consider the entire logistics, because you can actually write the step 1 during your medical school years, the step 1 towards the end of your medical school, and enter into residency as soon as you finish, if you have the right amount of, if you get the right timings, the right references, and the right opportunities. But in terms of UK, it might be a bit hard to get dates for the exams, and nowadays there's a huge shortage for initial level jobs, which makes it harder to enter the system. But for someone for whom it plays out well, the UK pathway is far more shorter in comparison to the Australian or New Zealand pathways. Now, coming to the negative part of the PLAB pathway, firstly would be the problem of competition. It is not just the entry-level jobs that have become saturated now, but with the entry of physician associates and the increase in medical school seats within the UK has also produced a bottleneck effect in the entry to specialty training. So this adds to a further level of competition, which might make it difficult for IMGs to compete in this space. My motto regarding this concept is that if you are the best in something, there is no way AI, robot, competition, nothing's going to stop you. And I just believe in working towards this direction, trying to make myself better or make myself the best every single day. And I think having that motto inside can actually help you in just propelling yourself forward. Maybe this might not work for you, but you would still be the best in your game, and that would give you more options to explore other options as well. The second drawback would be, even though this is an affordable pathway in comparison to the other international pathways, this is still expensive, and it could be difficult to finance this journey when you have other uncertain occurrences happening in the background. I do know some of my friends who were able to finance this entire journey by themselves, provided that they have planned things accordingly, where they worked during the PLAB process and saved up money for their travel for the PLAB too. But I also know of people who had to drop this midway because of some financial crisis or some things going in ways that they had not planned. So there is some element of financial risk in this pathway, and I would say that's again something you need to consider, considering your financial background in mind. The next problem would be the requirement to adapt to a new system, and not just the country, but the NHS healthcare system itself varies vastly in how the healthcare system in India functions, and it can be a huge transition, and settling into a role within the NHS can be quite challenging. But as I have known so far, the system is quite supportive. You find a lot of people there to help you. All you need to do is just ask for help. And coming to my second last drawback, which I would say is the most biggest cons of this pathway, one of the reasons what puts people away from choosing this pathway is the overall long duration. Yes, I know I said that this is a shorter pathway, but that was in terms of getting into the system. But if you consider entering into training and then coming out as a consultant, the PLAB pathway is fairly long. Not specifically the PLAB pathway, but the UK pathway is fairly long, because the training years can vary from, as the shortest number of training years is for GP training, which is 3 years, and most other specialties have a minimum of 6 to 8 or 10 years of training period, which means that for someone who is continuously into the training system might take 10 years to complete their training and become a consultant. And unfortunately, for people who need to plan other things alongside this, will or might end up taking more time than they anticipate. For instance, say you want to plan a family, have kids, take a break. All these things could amount to a longer training period, making your time to becoming a consultant fairly long. But my personal point on this is that I personally feel that medicine as a career has no particular limit or no ending. There is no point where I have felt or I feel that you could reach that point and then say, yes, I'm done with this, so I'm going to plan my next move. I just feel like medicine is an ongoing journey, and what I have come to adopt after my med school years is that I want to be in a system where I can just carry on my life along with my career. And I think the UK system kind of helps me with that I want to be able to enjoy all these little aspects of life as and when I go on with my training in the journey to becoming a consultant. If you do not have such plans, if you are someone who wants to finish their training, finish their residency, go back to your home country or move to another country, PLAB pathway might not be the best for you. Lastly, another major concern is the whole idea of moving to a new country and, most importantly, leaving your parents or family behind. I know that the Indian system is more cultural or community oriented, where almost every single parents have their children as their retirement plans. And it can be quite hard for us to leave them and move to an altogether different country that's like hours away, even with a flight, especially if they need you to help them or support them through their daily or physical needs. Fortunately, in my case or in our case, both of us are eldest kids. That kind of translates to the fact that our parents are not as old yet. They still have kids at home to keep them company, and it's not really a very emotionally difficult decision for either of us, because we do not feel that we're leaving them alone. Rather, we still have our siblings with them. And one of our major goals is to reach that point of independence by the time that such a need might arise, where we need to be there physically for them to take care of their basic needs. So in conclusion, the PLAB pathway is a fantastic option for people who have the time and who are limited on resources, but also do have options to gain that financial means. It is a really good option for people who want to keep their options to travel, want to have that independence of mobility, and want to explore a different career pathway or a different healthcare space. And so summarizing, I would say that it is a clear, affordable, and relatively quick route to getting an international medical degree. However, I add that it is very important to weigh the pros and cons, assess your personal situation, your personal commitments, your financial security or your financial background, and your family necessities and your long-term plans. Thank you for watching. I hope that you found this video helpful, and if so, please do not forget to like and subscribe this channel. Also, do leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I would love to hear what you think about this video. Bye-bye.